Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Rebel Clash, go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your order using the code OmniPoke. For today's video, we are looking at the interesting rogue deck Excadrill. It's actually had a couple placements in the recent Limitless Invitational qualifiers, piloted by the same person, Nicola Zapula. So he's found a way to have a decent time against the most popular decks in the format. I believe being a fellow one prizer gives you a decent chance against Baby Blacephalon, especially because you usually have less two prize Pokemon in play than they do. Also, you of course have a good weakness coverage against Pikachu and Zekrom, and with the likes of Giratina and Crushing Hammers, hopefully that could be enough to put Dragapult and ADP variants at bay at times. So that actually means that this deck has a relatively balanced matchup spread. With Zebstrika, you're relatively reset stamp proof and have good draw power in the mid game to help you keep getting those stage 1s. So it's actually been quite a bit of fun to play around this, and I actually prefer it to Baby Blounds. Baby Blounds is like one of the only decks I still haven't profiled in this format, because I just still haven't got a list that I enjoy. So I'm distracting myself with Excadrill today. Let's jump into the list. First of all, we have a 4-4 line of Excadrill. Drillbur has that Rototiller attack that can just get back a card from your discard pile. We are all about pitching as much stuff as possible, as early as possible, so that we can get into that 11th hour tackle from the Excadrill. But just getting back things like Pal Pads, Ordinary Rods, these are really nice cards to pick up if you just happen to use early researchers and stuff like that in those opening turns. However, it's all about the Excadrill, really. 140 hit point stage 1 fighting type that has 2 attacks, both for that fighting cost. 11th hour tackle does 30, but if you have 3 or fewer cards in your deck, this does 150 more damage. 180 for 1 is pretty decent for sure. Obviously, it's only really in the super late game where we can pull this off. But interestingly, with the likes of Sprint, Research, just Marnieing and stuff, you can cycle through your deck pretty quickly. And you can get there after like 4 or 5 turns pretty happily, and with the help of things like Phione, you can prevent yourself from decking out, as well as the likes of Pal Pad and Ordinary Rod if you're holding onto those pieces in the late game. So yeah, this attack you can actually use a couple times in the game, and is a great way to finish off bigger threats. But the main attack that you use throughout the game is Drill Bazooka. You just do 120 for 1 and discard the top 4 cards of your deck. That's what's going to make us play a pretty wacky spread of, well, wacky counts of cards that you'd normally not see. For example, we're playing triple Pal Pad, we're playing 4 Ordinary Rod, we're playing Brock's Grit. These are all cards that you don't really see too much, and it's because we have this random chance of just milling certain pieces along the way. Not ideal, but we're trying to make up for it with all this other stuff in the list. Like I said, this type coverage is a great deal, and that's one of the driving factors for why Excadrill can potentially take some free wins, which is cool. Supporting it, we have a 3-3 line of Zebstrika. The sprint ability is another great way for us to motor through that deck very fast, as well as just get to the point where we are relatively reset stamp proof, you want to say. Oftentimes you're looking to get 2 Zebstrika into play to be super safe. And yeah, it just bins a bunch of cards and gets you 4 new ones, so we can keep finding Rods, Energies, Excadrills. That's really the main thing we're after here. We're also playing a Ditto Prism to be a 5th optimal start with the Drillbur, and also be an extra Blitzle if need be. We are playing 1 copy of Diancie Prism Star, Princess's Cheers, obviously buffing our damage output quite nicely, pushing it to 140 for 1, and we can hit 200 with the 11th hour tackle, which is nice. We also have Dojo buff as well, potentially, so these Diancie and Dojo buffs can actually push this damage output quite nicely. It means you can even get through things like Frying Pan Zacian and stuff like that, so it's actually super relevant to have this. And obviously with the 140 base output, you're 2-shotting tag teams like ADP, so yeah, Diancie is actually pretty important for making sure we're doing relevant numbers even in the early turns. Next up, we have a couple one-ofs, one Dedenne-GX just for early game. You know, turn 1 or 2, we have a lot of Ball Search and a high com count, so having this as a fallback option so you can actually get multiple Drillbur down and a couple Blitzle down can sometimes be nice. You want to use this sparingly, of course, but when you are using that Dedenne change, it can certainly be a nice help for you. So something to bear in mind. We are playing 1 Dimension Breach Giratina. Now, oftentimes bench space is usually dedicated to a couple Drillbur and a couple Blitzle, so you have to be careful about using this card, but I think it's so important to have this Dimension Breath ability in the format right now, especially for this deck where the Excadrill sits at 140 hit points, and Dragapult's obviously hitting that 130. So stopping yourself from just dying to horror energy as you hit into them is actually really important. So having Giratina in addition to hammers is one of the only things we can do to try and make that Dragapult matchup winnable. So yeah, Giratina is really important for that. I also find it useful against a couple other archetypes, the likes of ADP if they're still playing the Tag Call package. Obviously Malolana is so strong right now that Tag Call package is being used in a bunch of decks. Speed Lightning, obviously you're not too concerned about it as Excadrill, but if you are whiffing knockouts, you can at least slow them down and maybe put them away from a big Tag Bolt turn. So that Giratina can sometimes be okay. We are playing the Phione. Obviously it acts as additional gust at times, which is fantastic for us, but this has the added effect of letting us sprint our entire hand away and have 0 cards left in our deck. Then we can just use Whirlpool Suction and get the 11th hour tackle off. So it's important to have this for gusting, but also so that we can trigger that 11th hour tackle 1 or 2 more times in a game, which is very cool. From there, we have, like I said, a bunch of Ball Search. 4 quick, 4 great, and 3 calm, just to get our Pokemon going. We need this throughout the entire game because we're not expecting Excadrill to tank too often. We have the 4 Ordinary Rod to recycle this because he is our only attacker in the deck. It also means that if we are bazookaing away our tech cards, like the Giratina or the Phione, we can Ordinary Rod them back in the deck. Sequencing is quite strange with this. Oftentimes you want to hold on to the rods and the Pal Pads for when it's coming back into your turn, then playing it and then just using Drill Bazooka, because you could randomly just mill the cards that you've only just put back in. So it's a fun sequencing challenge to sort of learn this deck. So yeah. But yeah, Pal Pads and Rods get back some key pieces, definitely cool. And those 4 Crushings, like I said, a real headache for ADP players in those early turns, and also Dragapult players at any point in the game. We oftentimes have to target those horrors because they are disgusting for us to deal with, so do bear that in mind. We have a couple Martial Arts Dojo. Again, pushing that extra damage output means that we are securing 2 shots on things, so that's obviously very good. And if we're behind on prize cards, even better, we get that additional 40 damage, which is pretty cool. Then we have the 1 Brock's Grit. It's a bit of a fallback plan because we have that many rods and the Pal Pads to recycle the Brock. Usually it's going to see you through. It's a bit of a safety net just in case a bunch of Ordinary Rods get randomly bazookaed away. A couple of Boss's Orders for gusting. We love picking up multiple prize Pokemon, so that's always going to be a thing. And finishing things off because we're oftentimes 2-shotting. Triple Marnie, just to keep pushing through the deck, but Research is obviously the best option that we have in that regard. And we're going to play 7 Fighting Energy to round out the deck. So yeah, I don't think there's much else I would think about. I know that the list that made top 64 and top 128 of the last 2 qualifiers did play a Tapu Fini. Obviously it can improve that Baby Blacephalon matchup a little bit, but I think for the most part, just trading with your Excadrills is fine, and Finny's like dead against pretty much everything else. So yeah, the only other thing I could think about is potentially something like a U-turn board, or potentially 1 copy of Scoop Up Net. It's really random because at any point you just have to like sprint it away at times, but we actually have no switching options at all in this deck. So surprisingly, even though we're a 1 energy attacking deck, we can be very vulnerable to opposing hammers. And you also have to bear that in mind when you're putting down Diancie. Oftentimes you will have to find a turn to attach to a Diancie so that you don't just get trapped by a gust play and then they're starting to snipe around you, because they can get some free damage in that way. I've seen Dragapult players do it with Mew. I've seen Baby Blacephalon players do it with Cramorant. So do certainly be careful about things like Diancie being trapped, and also if they just Crushing Hammer your active and gust something else up, and then just go for snipe plays, it can also be really awkward. So that's one small vulnerable part of this deck. But yeah, let's jump into the ladder and see how we roll with this Excadrill deck. Like I said, it's a bit of fun. It's trying to target some very specific matchups, but with the hammers, I actually think its spread is relatively like safe. So yeah, it's been an interesting road to explore. And like I said, I prefer it to Baby Blounce. It draws better. Oh god, are we against Gengar Pult? That sounds like a horrible matchup for us. Our opening's pretty solid though. We have a couple Great Balls. We have a Com for any of these Great Balls getting like a card we don't really care about, and then we can attach and Marnie. So that's looking pretty good. I see a Ghastly. Switching into the Ghastly. The Treasure again. Okay. So they're trying to just let the Ghastly get knocked out so they can go straight into Haunters and then evolve up into Gengars. So they're playing the Haunters instead of the Candies, I guess. Alright. Let's fire off some quick balls. Drillbur is obviously very solid. And Blitzle is also very solid. We will take those for sure. Do I want to... So I can do an interesting play. I can boss this and Giratina. And put him back a turn. I think that's the best way to protect ourselves here from too many shenanigans coming our way. Do I just want to put back a Com or a Great Ball? Or should I hold the hand? I think attaching is definitely the right move. So let's Rototiller. We have much better access to these bosses orders again. I'm going to grab the Great Ball. Shuffle that back in. Giratina already putting in work. We've got a couple basics down, and now we're not concerned about just getting overrun by a turn 2 Dragapult attack. And we're hoping that future hammers can keep him even further at bay. Obviously with Zigzagoon he could knock out the active here, even with a Evolve and Shred play. We'll see. Yep, he's going to treasure out a VMAX, I would imagine here. Certainly is. He got rid of a Quick Ball, so maybe it doesn't play Zigzagoon. Yeah, just a Shred for 60. That's pretty good for us. I'm going to swing the next energy on, and I am going to Marnie here. We do hit Excadrill, and we can also begin to gallop with our hand, which is very good. The more I can evolve, the better, because, again, I just want to stay out of range of this Phantom. So this is going to be important. We're also digging for Crushing Hammers this turn. We do hit a Hammer. We also hit a Bull Search, which is going to be nice. Hitting this guy for just the 90 with the resist. I can push that a little bit further, or I could Dedenne change and dig for more crushings. Slash stadium slash more basics. Alternatives is to grab Phione here and Gust. I do always want to pressurize the attachments in this deck, that's for sure. But he is playing heal, so just hitting into him is like a terrible deal. So I think Phione's probably our best move here. Hitting into him is exactly what he wants as the Gengar player, because he's probably just playing like scoop up nets and stuff like that to remove damage. So we will just Bazooka. Obvious concern is if he can achieve a knockout on active and Drilbur. They have space for Crushings even though they're playing Gengar. Gotta respect that. Oh wow, okay, so he's whiffing energy himself here, which is good. We pick up an Ordinary Rod, which is super good for us. We want these back in. Fighting energy is good. Pal Pad is fine. More bossing is going to be important. Let's draw 7. See the outcome of this hammer. Let's get Tails. I can once again Quick Ball for Phione. Try and push this Dragger out the way. I need to think about whether or not I'm going to sprint, and I'm definitely going to. I guess we'll play around Hammer. Daily change is interesting. Getting rid of a boss is kind of worrying, but I'm basically always pushing for my next Drilburs and stuff. And if I find my last hammer, it's still insane. Evolving is a nice safety net. More of these. That's Bazooka. Ditto, not too important. A big risk against Pult. We've got a bunch of Jirachis. Alright, so there's the Gengar. Gengar is difficult for us to knock out because it also has resist. So, we'll just ignore it. Again. I can get very low. Yeah, sounds good. Crushing is, again, super pog. Nice. That's super good for us. How many energy are we talking about? Okay, that's fine. And we're getting down to that good range of deck size. We're very close to being in the 11th hour. They're going to boss us up. Boss something up. Might be a trapping play. Certainly is. So we're going to be going to... I always want a Phione here, I think. Wait, do I? Yeah, I still have to, because he still has so much healing potential. So we'll do this. The Phione's put in a ridiculous amount of work already. I'm going to... grab our Diancie. Diancie means that we can go 140, 150 to get there. Grab back our bosses, because that's going to be the last prize we want. Then we're going to Brock. We want as many energy as possible. Let me just grab the rest. I'm going to thin the Blitz, because we don't need that boy. And hope to hit energy. Nice. We can Bazooka. Phione finally hits the bin. It's avoided it for a long time. The opponent has kind of bricked here, let's be honest. But they have fed us a bunch of Jirachis. I think they could have played better there, to be honest. But hey, we did it. That's one win under our belt. Classic Excadrill plays. We saw a couple of good things in action there. We saw how effective hammers are. Obviously, they missed a few attachments and stuff, but the Giratina early game play prevented us from just like getting swept on turn 2, which some Dragapult players could just do to you at times. So that's a nice thing to bear in mind. So winning the coin flip, I think we have enough ball search that you normally still choose to go first. It's still a point of contention for me because you are vulnerable at times. But looks like it's working out for us. We've drawn a lot of ball search early. Oranguru. So it's probably Turbo Zacian. I don't really need to play anything against Turbo Zacian in the early turns. Can save Quick Ball Com for next turn. Yeah, we'll just pass. If he gets to turn 1 Zacian, he gets a turn 1 Zacian. But oh, it's a list that plays Pokédoll. Pokédoll is fine, but it means we have to keep an eye on our Phione. We're actually having to attach to a Oranguru here. Just to get a Stellar Wish, looking for Quick Ball, I imagine. I'm just going to have to pick up another Marnie. Not ideal for them. But they do have the Intrepid Sword at least. And they get an energy, so we can actually get Crushing Hammer value potentially. Crushing Hammer, very good against Pulp, but also very solid against Zacian. Right, we definitely want to go Excadrill. We definitely want to Zebra. I definitely want a Phione. Now, am I content to Dedenne change? I think I'm going to Dedenne change because whiffing the Drilbur is too risky. Okay. Oh boy. This is a lot to hit the bin. Let's think about it. Yeah, let's just say yeet. And we still whiff Drilbur, but we do get Crushings. And finally we get there. Hopefully, with the Crushing heads, it's hard for him to find multiple sources and attach. Obviously, he's going to go into the Doll here, I would imagine. So yeah, hopefully it's not a saucer spam coming in. Hopefully it's just the Marnie from him. Oh no, we Marnied him, right? Yeah. Gonna see some Wisdom. Gonna see a Swell come down and a Research. Monka. Alright. Well, that's a big relief. Certainly gonna Quick Ball every time. Actually gonna concede. I don't think they necessarily should have done that, but they were slow, and we were going to 4 prizes that turn, or getting a free hit on Zacian with the Phione, so the trade was looking a little bit ugly for him. So, can see why they did, but there's still a lot of like random elements with Excadrill, so I don't think it's a deck you ever actually concede against, because there's just random discards that can ruin their day. But yeah.